The morning light peeks through the grimy window, casting a dull, yellowish hue over the room. The air is thick, heavy with the smell of the street outside, foul and ever-present. You can taste it, a mixture of sewage, rotting garbage, and coal smoke that hangs in the air like an unwelcome guest. The constant hum of the city, a cacophony of noise and filth, seeps into your bones. This is Victorian London, a world where the stench of human waste is not just a passing nuisance, but a permanent fixture of life. You rub your eyes and sit up, the rough sheets sticking to your skin, heavy with the sweat of the previous night. Your body feels sticky, the sweat from the lack of ventilation, and the oppressive heat of the room clinging to you like a second skin. You can't help but notice the grime on your hands, dirt embedded beneath the nails, the telltale signs of a life lived without the luxury of cleanliness. There is no time to bathe today. There never is. The water is too precious, reserved for the few moments when it can be spared from the demands of cooking, cleaning, and the ever-present need to prepare for the next day's work. You shuffle to the small mirror, your reflection almost indistinguishable through the fog of dirt and grime that coats the glass. Your face looks worn with dark circles under your eyes and a layer of dust clinging to your skin. It's only been a day since you last bathed, but it already feels like an eternity. In the Victorian era, bathing is a luxury for the few, and you, like most, are accustomed to the absence of such simple comforts. You pull on your clothes, the fabric rough and heavy, much like the world outside. There is a sense of defeat in the air, an oppressive weight that seems to hang over the city. The streets are crowded with people, some walking, others hurriedly moving in and out of shops, while children play in the muck, their bare feet caked in filth. The streets are never clean, only temporarily free of refuse after an occasional sweep, and even then the gutters are always clogged with a mixture of waste, human and animal, that seems to be an intrinsic part of the city's daily rhythm. As you make your way outside, the air hits you, a combination of decaying food, overflowing sewage, and the suffocating heat that rises from the cobbled streets. The city is alive with the movement of people, but there's no joy here, only the raw, palpable struggle of survival. People walk with their heads down, eyes focused on the ground, careful not to step into the muck that covers the streets. There is no avoiding it. It's part of life here. The working poor, those who live in cramped, unsanitary conditions, are the most affected. With little access to clean water, bathing is a rare occurrence. Instead, people make do with what they can, using cold, sponge baths when they can afford to. But there is little time for such luxuries. In a world where every minute of the day is consumed by the need to survive, there is simply no room for personal care. You pass by a group of children playing near an open sewer grate, their laughter echoing in the streets, oblivious to the danger surrounding them. Their faces are smeared with dirt, their clothes ragged and torn. They are the true reflection of this city, struggling to survive amidst the filth, their innocence untouched by the harsh realities of their world. They are the product of a city that, despite its grandeur and its promises of progress, has failed to provide the most basic of human needs: sanitation, cleanliness, and health. The air is thick with the smell of rot, but it's all you've ever known. It's part of the rhythm of the city, the pulse of Victorian life. People have learned to live with it, to adapt to the grime that coats everything: skin, clothes, the very air itself. And yet, even in the midst of this filth, there is resilience. The people, in their gritty determination, carry on. They go about their days, their bodies weighed down by the constant struggle, but their spirits unbroken. They endure because there is no other choice. You can hear the clatter of horse-drawn carts in the distance, their wheels creaking and groaning under the weight of the city's endless needs. The stench of animal waste adds to the overwhelming smell, but no one seems to notice. They are too busy with the work of living, of surviving. The poor, like you, have learned to live without the luxury of cleanliness. You've adapted, and perhaps that is the greatest survival skill of all in this city: adaptation. As the day stretches on, the city will continue to pulse with life, with work, with its ceaseless march forward. But the question lingers in the back of your mind: how long can this continue? How long can the people live in this filth before something breaks? As the day progresses, the city of London grows busier, its streets alive with movement and noise. yet the sense of discomfort never leaves. The clattering of horses' hooves and the creaking of wooden carts blend with the muffled sounds of conversation, but beneath it all, there's an ever-present undercurrent of danger. The air smells of coal smoke, animal waste, and the tang of rotting food. The stench is oppressive, clinging to your clothes and filling your lungs with each breath. It is not the air of a city bustling with prosperity, but of a place that is struggling to contain the chaos of its own growth. There is an unspoken truth here. This city is teetering on the edge, held together by the labor of its inhabitants, but constantly at risk of falling apart due to the very neglect it thrives upon. As you walk deeper into the heart of the city, you notice more of the signs of the unseen dangers that lurk beneath the surface of daily life. The sewers, which are little more than open gutters, overflow with waste and filth, sending a stream of brown water flowing through the streets. The stench of sewage is unbearable, yet it has become part of the fabric of this city. People step around the puddles with practiced ease, their eyes focused on the ground, aware of the dangers but forced to accept them as a part of life. Children, barefoot and dirty, play in the muck, unaware of the diseases that thrive in such conditions. The unsanitary conditions don't just linger in the streets. In homes, the absence of running water means that people must rely on wells, streams, or public baths that are shared by many. The practice of communal bathing, though better than nothing, is an invitation for germs to spread from person to person. Soap, a luxury for the rich, is often made of animal fat and lye, and it does little to cleanse the skin from the layers of grime that build up over time. Even the wealthier citizens who might afford to bathe more regularly still face the risk of contamination from the shared bathwater. The city's lack of understanding about germs and hygiene means that the most common of diseases, cholera, typhoid, and dysentery, are allowed to spread unchecked. As you walk past a small alley, the sound of a muffled cough reaches your ears. It is not an uncommon sound. Many suffer from persistent coughs, a lingering symptom of the smog that fills the air and the dampness that pervades the homes. Tuberculosis is rampant, as is pneumonia, and the lack of proper ventilation in homes only exacerbates the issue. The medical community is still largely ignorant of the true causes of disease. Instead of curing illnesses, doctors often make things worse with treatments like bloodletting, which further weakens the body, or mercury, which poisons it. For the poor, the local barber often doubles as a surgeon, his instruments unsterilized and crude, yet his services are the only ones they can afford. The lack of knowledge about sanitation and the spread of disease is a deadly game, and many will pay the price for this ignorance. In the wealthier neighborhoods, the upper class may seem untouched by these issues. They live in cleaner, better-maintained homes, but they are not immune to the dangers that plague the poor. They too have their own set of problems, though they are less visible. The use of lead-based cosmetics is common among women, who apply the dangerous substance to their faces in the belief that it will make their skin appear paler and more delicate. Little do they know that lead poisoning is slowly seeping into their bodies, causing irreparable damage over time. Even their finest clothes, though beautiful and expensive, are often made from materials that have been treated with toxic chemicals, posing an unseen risk to their health. Even the wealthiest cannot escape the overarching presence of disease. Plague outbreaks, though rare, still occur, and the constant fear of contagion looms over the city. In the markets, food is often sold without regard for hygiene, with meats and produce sitting out in the open, exposed to the elements. Flies and rats are constant companions in the crowded, poorly kept areas of the city. Food, while plentiful, is often spoiled or rotten by the time it reaches the consumer. People may eat spoiled bread, rancid meat, or milk that has gone sour without realizing the full extent of the danger therein. Foodborne diseases are commonplace, and the people of London, both rich and poor, suffer from the results. You can hear the faint sound of a bell ringing in the distance, signaling the arrival of the evening curfew. The streets will soon empty, and the city will quiet for a few hours, but the dangers will remain. The smell, the waste, the disease, they do not go away with the dark. Instead, they settle in, waiting for another day to begin. But for now, as the day begins to close, you feel the weight of all these hidden dangers, these constant threats to your health settling in around you. There is no escaping them. They are part of this world, woven into the fabric of everyday life. The day continues to unfold with its usual rhythms, the streets growing busier as the morning wears on. The air remains thick, the smell of sewage and coal smoke hanging heavy, but it's the absence of the obvious that begins to feel oppressive. You walk deeper into the city, the sound of your footsteps mixing with the muffled chatter of pedestrians, the clattering of horse-drawn carts, and the occasional shout of a vendor. It's a city alive with activity, yet beneath the bustle there is a quiet, invisible force at work, one that you can't see but you can feel. It's the slow, relentless spread of disease, a silent epidemic that has its roots in the very dirt beneath your feet. You pass a group of women huddled together, wrapped in their shawls, gossiping as they walk, their faces pale and flushed, though no one comments on it. Fever, coughs, and weakness are common in the neighborhood, and the villagers have learned to keep such symptoms hidden. It's a sign of survival. No one wants to be marked as ill, because once that happens, you become a target for isolation, for fear. The knowledge of how easily disease spreads is missing, and the idea that something as simple as cleanliness could save lives is still a distant, unformed idea. In another part of the city, you pass the overcrowded tenements, their doors ajar to let in a slight breeze, though it's hard to imagine how much fresh air these small spaces could ever catch. The windows, if they have any, are mostly shut tight, trapping the heat, the smell, the diseases inside. Inside, families huddle together, crowded into tiny, cramped rooms. The lack of ventilation, the proximity to one another. This is a breeding ground for illness, but the families here do not have the luxury of isolation or privacy. The poor are forced to live in these conditions, with little choice but to endure. A child passes by you, barefoot, the soles of their feet blackened with soot. Their faces streaked with dirt, eyes watery, but they move with a strange resilience, their presence a silent reminder that the disease doesn't discriminate. No one is exempt. You can see it in their faces, the hollow eyes of the sick, the tightness of their bodies, the coughing fits that often seem to come from nowhere. The child doesn't seem to be bothered by the cold, the dirt, or the rags they wear. They are more concerned with the empty streets and the absence of food than their own well-being. You can't help but think of the many diseases that plague the city. Cholera, tuberculosis, typhoid, each one spreading quietly, insidiously. None of these diseases announce their arrival with loud cries or warnings. They take hold slowly, moving through families and neighborhoods without anyone realizing until it's too late. And by the time the symptoms show themselves, it's often already too late to stop the spread. The people, poor and vulnerable, do not have the means to protect themselves. There are no clean water sources, no understanding of germ theory, no antibiotics or proper treatments. Instead, people rely on folk remedies, herbs, salves and potions passed down through generations, many of them ineffective, some even harmful. Doctors too are unaware of the causes of these ailments. In fact, they continue to offer dangerous treatments like bloodletting, which depletes the already weakened bodies of their patients. Mercury, another common treatment, is used to treat everything from syphilis to the common cold, poisoning the body in the process. Medical professionals, though often well-meaning, are blind to the real causes of the diseases that afflict the city. Without knowledge of germs or bacteria, they continue to practice medicine as though they are fighting a ghost, a sickness they cannot see but know is there. As you walk, you pass a butcher's stall, where meat is laid out in the open, exposed to flies and dirt. The flies buzz incessantly, landing on the carcasses, adding to the filth of the environment. It's a scene you've grown accustomed to, but even now, you can't help but feel uneasy. How many of the illnesses that plague the city could be avoided with simple hygiene? How many lives could be saved if the public understood the importance of clean water, proper sanitation, and sterilized tools? These questions linger in your mind, but the answers seem far away, impossible to grasp. The people of London do not yet know that their living conditions are the root cause of their suffering. They live in a world where illness is an unspoken part of life, a harsh but accepted reality. You stop by a public well, the water murky and filled with particles from the surrounding ground. People gather there, filling their buckets with water, unaware that this very water may be tainted with bacteria that will soon make them ill. Some will fall sick in days, others weeks, but for many it will be too late by the time they realize what has happened. The city has no infrastructure to deal with these problems, not yet. It is a city at war with itself, fighting battles with invisible enemies, and it is the poorest, those with no means of escape, who will bear the brunt of these unrelenting battles. The wind picks up slightly, but it does nothing to cut through the stench in the air. As you continue walking, the weight of the city's illness seems to press down on you. You think of the many people living in these conditions, trying to survive, their bodies weak, their spirits sometimes broken. There is no escape for them. This is their reality. They endure because they have no other choice. As the day goes on, the hustle and bustle of the city's streets never seem to cease. The clamour of carts, the cries of vendors, the murmur of crowds, all blur into a chaotic rhythm that fills the air. Yet beneath the noise there is a growing sense of unease, a quiet shift that is almost imperceptible to the average Londoner. It starts as a murmur among the educated, the public health officials, the growing number of reformers who are beginning to question the long-accepted practices that have contributed to the relentless spread of disease. These people are beginning to ask, why does death come so easily to the poor, and why are the wealthy seemingly untouched by these outbreaks? The answer, though elusive, is slowly taking shape. You walk through the city, your steps heavier now with the weight of understanding. You have seen firsthand the filth and decay that permeate every inch of this place, but you are starting to see beyond the surface. A handful of progressive thinkers are beginning to make waves in the medical community, suggesting that the way to stop the diseases is not through more bloodletting or mercury treatments, but through something as simple as sanitation. The idea that illness is not a result of punishment or bad luck, but something that can be controlled, even prevented, is taking root. It's a radical thought, but in the haze of cholera outbreaks and infant deaths, it feels like a beacon of hope. As you walk through the city, you notice that not everyone is ready to accept this new idea. For many, change is something that is feared, not welcomed. There are whispers in the streets about the so-called germ theory, and how the presence of these invisible entities could be causing the sickness that has claimed so many lives. The notion that something so small, so unseen, could be the cause of suffering is difficult to grasp. After all, in a city where every problem is met with superstition, where every misfortune is blamed on fate or divine retribution, the idea that cleanliness could prevent disease is difficult to accept. But still, the reformers press on. You pass by a small group of men engaged in heated discussion outside a pub, their voices raised over the noise of the passing crowds. They are talking about Dr. John Snow, the man who has become the city's new hope. His theory that cholera spreads through contaminated water is gaining traction, despite the skepticism of many. You stop for a moment, listening to the words they speak, hearing the disbelief in their voices, but also the faint hint of curiosity. It's clear that not everyone is convinced, but there is a shift in the air. People are beginning to ask questions, and that perhaps is the first step toward change. As you continue walking, the city seems to hum with a quiet anticipation, as if it too is beginning to wake up to the reality of its own situation. The small outbreaks of cholera, once seen as inevitable, are now being questioned. The lack of sewage systems, the open cesspools that line the streets, and the filthy public wells, these are the things that are starting to be recognized as dangerous. The solution, though still distant, feels within reach. People are starting to demand better living conditions, cleaner streets, and, perhaps most importantly, the development of a modern sewage system. You stop at a public well, watching as a man draws water, his hands stained with the dirt of the streets. You think about how much of the water has been contaminated by the filth that surrounds it. This is where cholera spreads, where disease takes root. But now there are murmurs of reform. Public health advocates are calling for better sanitation systems, the building of sewers to carry away the filth that has long been dumped in the streets. It seems like an impossible task, but the idea is starting to take hold. In the distance, the silhouette of a new building catches your eye, an early example of the sanitary reforms that are slowly making their way into the city. The building, though humble, represents a shift in how people view their living conditions. It is a structure built with cleanliness in mind, a small but significant step toward a future where health is no longer left to chance. It is a hopeful sign, one that marks the beginning of a transformation that will take years, but which is already quietly unfolding. As the day draws to a close, the noise of the city begins to fade, the streets slowly emptying as the people retire to their homes. The air is cooler now, the evening breeze carrying with it the faint smell of damp earth and fresh rain. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the day's events settle into your bones. The road ahead is uncertain, but there is hope on the horizon. People are beginning to understand that the key to survival is not just brute strength or perseverance, but the understanding that hygiene, sanitation, and knowledge are just as important. Change, though slow, is coming, and with it, a new understanding of how to survive in this city that has long been plagued by disease. The city of London, though still steeped in the grime of its past, begins to shift. Slowly, like a heavy ship that has just begun to change course, the city starts to awaken to the ideas of reform. The discussions of sanitation, once confined to medical journals and academic circles, are now spilling into the streets, into the taverns, the markets, and even the homes of ordinary citizens. There is a quiet sense of anticipation hanging in the air, an unspoken belief that the times are changing, that the very fabric of this city is about to be rewoven. But the road ahead is long, and the path to reform is fraught with resistance, ignorance, and, most of all, fear. As you walk through the streets, the whispers of progress grow louder. The public health advocates, though still a minority, are gaining ground. They speak of the dangers of contaminated water, the unsanitary conditions that have long been allowed to fester in the heart of the city. They argue that the way to fight disease is not with bloodletting or mercury, but with cleanliness, with proper waste disposal, and with an understanding of how diseases spread. For many, these ideas are revolutionary, even unthinkable, but the seed of change has been planted, and it is beginning to take root. In the poorer districts where disease has claimed so many lives, there is a growing demand for change. People are starting to understand that their suffering is not just inevitable, it is preventable. They demand better sanitation, cleaner water, and the removal of the filth that lines the streets. The city's government, however, is slow to act. The wealthy, who are more insulated from the daily hardships of life in the slums, are not yet convinced that sanitation should be a priority. There is still resistance, particularly from those who see reform as an unnecessary expense, one that could be avoided if only people were more careful about their personal habits. Yet despite the reluctance of the establishment, small changes are starting to take hold. New, cleaner public baths are being built, though they are still few and far between. The idea of a modern sewage system is no longer a distant dream, but a tangible plan that is slowly gaining traction among those in positions of power. Even the medical community, though lagging behind, is beginning to acknowledge that there is something to the new ideas about cleanliness and disease. Doctors, once firm believers in harmful practices like bloodletting, are beginning to experiment with more hygienic approaches, though they remain hesitant to embrace the full scope of the new knowledge. In your travels through the city, you see signs of these changes, though they are still small and tentative. A new well is being dug in a neighborhood that has long been plagued by waterborne illnesses. The streets are a little cleaner, the smell of refuse less pervasive. The markets, once overflowing with unwashed meat and spoiled food, now show signs of improved cleanliness, though the standards are still far from perfect. These changes are a slow process, each small victory building upon the next, and yet they are significant. They are a testament to the power of public awareness, to the belief that things can be better. You stop at a newly constructed public bathhouse, its clean, whitewashed walls standing in stark contrast to the dirt and grime of the surrounding buildings. The smell inside is one of soap and fresh water, a welcome change from the usual stench of the streets. The bathhouse is not luxurious, far from it. The water is still drawn from the same contaminated wells, but it is cleaner than anything most of the poor in London have ever known. The idea that people can bathe regularly, that they can access fresh water in a public space, seems almost miraculous. Yet, for those who have never experienced this luxury, it is a symbol of hope, of a future where cleanliness might finally become a basic human right. But the bathhouse is not the end. It is only the beginning. As you walk away, you know that the road to reform is long and full of obstacles. The wealthy will resist, the medical community will fight progress, and the entrenched systems of power will attempt to preserve the status quo. But for the first time, the idea that sanitation and cleanliness are essential to health is gaining ground, and with it, a sense of hope. The storm of disease and filth that has plagued London for so long is not over, but the winds of change are blowing stronger than ever. As you walk away from the bathhouse and into the streets, the city seems a little brighter, a little cleaner. The world outside may still be filled with the stench of decay, but there is a growing sense that things can be different. The whispers of reform are turning into shouts. The people are beginning to demand better, and for the first time the city's leaders are starting to listen. The winds of change are still faint, barely noticeable to those caught in the busy rhythms of their everyday lives. But for you, as you walk through the city streets, there's a shift, a quiet, almost imperceptible sense of hope in the air. It's the kind of hope that comes from change, from the promise of better days. Yet, the road to reform is not an easy one. Even as small steps are being taken to improve the city's hygiene, there are still powerful forces resisting the progress. The wealthy elite who live in cleaner, better maintained homes feel no urgency to address the squalid conditions of the poor. They continue to live in their insulated world, oblivious or indifferent to the suffering of those less fortunate. You make your way to one of the poorer districts. The streets narrower here, the buildings packed together like sardines in a can. The stench of decay is still overwhelming, the smell of human waste and the remnants of yesterday's meals clinging to the air. The streets, though slightly cleaner than before, are still far from what they should be. The ground is slick with the remnants of rainwater, mixing with the filth that never truly disappears. People move through the streets with purpose, heads down, walking fast, avoiding the puddles that are filled with sewage and waste. For many, these streets are a daily reminder that sanitation is still a luxury, one that most cannot afford. Despite the efforts of the reformers, the infrastructure needed to address the city's health crisis is still lacking. The newly constructed public baths, though a step in the right direction, are not enough. The city's poor remain at the mercy of unsanitary conditions, their health compromised by the very environment in which they live. It is a battle, not just against disease, but against a system that has allowed inequality to persist for so long. You pass by a group of workers, their faces streaked with dirt, their clothes ragged from the hard labor. They stand outside a factory, taking a brief rest before returning to their grueling work. Their hands are calloused, their faces lined with exhaustion, but there's a resilience in their eyes. They've lived through countless hardships and have learned to endure. The conditions they face are harsh, but they are not without hope. They know that the reformers are working tirelessly to bring about change, to build the sewage systems and public health infrastructure that will make their lives better. But they also know that change takes time, and that time is something they do not have in abundance. The wealthier citizens, those who live in the grand homes with their manicured gardens and polished streets, have little understanding of what it's like to live in the squalor of the city's poorest districts. They sit in their comfortable parlors, drinking tea and discussing matters of business and fashion, while the poor suffer just beyond their doorsteps. They may be aware of the reforms taking place, but to them they are distant ideas, things that will not touch their lives. The wealthy feel little urgency to make the necessary sacrifices, to push for real change that would address the root causes of the city's health crisis. They believe that the poor simply need to take better care of themselves, to avoid disease by washing their hands and using soap. But they fail to realize that for many, these simple luxuries are beyond their reach. As you walk through the streets, you hear the discussions of the reformers, doctors, social workers, politicians, who are trying to bring attention to the need for better sanitation and public health. Some of them have seen the evidence for themselves: cholera outbreaks, infant deaths, the spread of tuberculosis. They understand that disease is not simply a matter of fate or bad luck. It is a result of the conditions in which people live. Yet despite their best efforts, they are met with resistance. There are still those who believe that the poor are simply dirty, that disease is a result of personal failure, not societal neglect. The wealthy still cling to the belief that hygiene is a personal matter, that each individual is responsible for their own health. But those who live in the slums know that this is not the case. Their survival is dependent on the conditions of the environment, the quality of the air they breathe, the water they drink, and the sanitation systems that are sorely lacking. You pass by a street vendor selling bread, the warm smell of freshly baked loaves wafting through the air. The bread is cheap, a staple for the poor, but the vendor's cart is next to a gutter filled with waste. The juxtaposition is stark. Fresh bread, a vital food source, but it's sold right next to the very filth that contaminates it. Even the most basic of food items are at risk here. The vendor does his best to keep the cart clean, but it's a losing battle. The air, the ground, the water, it's all tainted by the filth that accumulates with every passing day. As you continue your walk through the city, you can't help but wonder how long it will take for real change to come. How long will it take for the wealthy to realize the importance of sanitation? How long will it take for the government to build the infrastructure that will keep the city's residents safe? The task is monumental, but the movement for reform is growing. Small victories are being won, and slowly the idea that hygiene is a matter of public responsibility, not private luxury, is beginning to gain traction. The road ahead is still long, but as the sun sets on another day in the city, you feel a sense of cautious optimism. Change is coming, though it may take years to fully materialize. The winds of reform are stirring, and with each passing day, the city inches closer to a future where health and cleanliness are no longer privileges for the few, but rights for all. The air, once so heavy with the stench of the city, now carries a faint hint of hope. But even as the winds shift and reform begins to take hold, the threat of disease still lingers like a shadow over London. The Great Stink of 1858, a defining moment in the city's history, is looming ever closer. It's a reminder of just how bad things have gotten, a visceral symbol of the city's failure to address the most basic needs of its citizens. The stench which rises from the overflowing cesspools and untreated waste in the streets is so overwhelming that it forces even the wealthy elite to acknowledge the severity of the problem. For a brief moment, the powerful are forced to confront the consequences of their negligence. This event marks a turning point in the public's awareness of the sanitation crisis. No longer can it be ignored or pushed to the margins. Change must come, and soon. You walk through the streets, the sound of your boots echoing in the growing quiet of the morning. The people are moving faster now, their expressions more determined, their actions more purposeful. They know that something has to change. They know that their survival depends on it. And yet, the resistance remains. The powerful have always been able to ignore the plight of the poor, but even they can no longer turn a blind eye to the crisis that is unfolding around them. The air is thick with the knowledge that something must be done, but the question remains, what will it take to make real change? As you pass by a group of reformers huddled together in an alleyway, their voices low but passionate, you catch snippets of their conversation. They are discussing the sewer system, the idea that all of London's waste, both human and animal, should be contained and directed away from the population. The idea is a radical one, but the more you hear, the more you realize how necessary it is. The public health reformers are fighting against centuries of neglect, pushing for the construction of a modern sewer system that will carry waste away from the heart of the city and help prevent the spread of disease. The Great Stink, which has drawn attention to the overwhelming problem of waste in the city, has created an opening for these reforms, but the battle is far from over. The city's leaders are still hesitant, still resistant to the enormous cost of such an undertaking. The conversation turns to cholera, to the devastating effects it has had on the poor. It spreads through contaminated water, and for the first time, the reformers are beginning to understand how sanitation can be the key to stopping the spread of disease. It's a slow realization, one that has taken decades to form, but it is taking root. The reformers are starting to push for immediate action, for the implementation of a modern sanitation system that will protect the people and save countless lives. But the opposition is strong. The wealthier classes, who are still largely unaffected by the squalor of the poor, are resistant to the change. They view it as an unnecessary expense, an indulgence for the lower classes. They refuse to believe that sanitation is something that should be universal, something that everyone should have access to. You pause for a moment standing by the edge of the Thames, watching as the polluted river flows lazily by. The river, which serves as the city's main water source, is filled with waste and disease, a silent killer that takes lives without warning. The water, which should be a source of life, is now a vector for death. You think about the people who live along the river's banks, the children who play near its shores, unaware of the dangers lurking beneath the surface. The thought fills you with a quiet rage, a deep frustration with a system that has allowed this to happen. But even in the midst of your anger, you know that change is coming. The Great Stink has forced the issue to the forefront, and now the city's leaders are finally beginning to see the problem. As you continue walking through the city, you notice the small signs of progress. The cleaner streets, fewer piles of refuse, the occasional public bathhouse. Though the changes are slow, they are becoming more apparent. The reformers have begun to gain ground, and the city is starting to respond. The resistance is still there, but the momentum is shifting. It's as though a dam has been breached, and the floodwaters of change are beginning to spill forth. The reforms are not just about improving the city's hygiene, they are about reshaping the entire structure of society, about recognizing that the health of one is the health of all. It's about understanding that the health of the poor is just as important as the health of the wealthy, and that true progress can only be made when everyone is given the same opportunities to thrive. You can see the future ahead, though it is still hazy, still distant. The road to a cleaner, healthier London will take time, but the foundation for change has been laid. The city will never be the same again. The Great Stink will go down in history as the catalyst for reform, the moment when London finally acknowledged the link between sanitation and health. Though the work is far from over, there is now a sense of urgency, a sense of responsibility that was once missing. The people, the poor, the workers, they are no longer invisible. Their struggles are now seen, their lives valued. The day feels different as the sun begins to set, the warmth of the afternoon fading into the cool embrace of the evening. There's a palpable sense of anticipation in the air, as though something momentous is on the verge of happening. You've seen the shift over the past few months, the small victories, the growing awareness, the quiet steps towards progress. Though the city still smells of coal, filth, and human waste, the change is undeniable. The once unchallenged presence of disease and decay now feels like a problem that can and will be solved. The Great Stink, that overwhelming assault on the senses, has forced the city into action, and though much remains to be done, London is starting to feel like a city with a future, not just a past of grime and misery. You walk through the city, your steps sure as you move through the streets that are slowly being cleaned. The crowds are still dense, the air still thick, but there is something different now. There's a sense of momentum in the air, as though the city, weighed down by its history of neglect, is beginning to lift. The smell of the streets is less overpowering, the waste slightly more contained. Public works are underway, and the signs of change are starting to appear in every corner of the city. You pass a newly built sewer entrance, humble but an undeniable sign of progress. It is an odd thing to think about, a system that will carry away the city's waste and prevent it from flowing through the streets. In your mind, you picture the intricate network of tunnels that will soon carry sewage away from the heart of London, a silent but powerful force that will change the way the city functions. For so long, the city's waste has sat stagnant, polluting the air and water, but now, for the first time, there is hope that this can be remedied. The air feels a little lighter, the streets a little cleaner, and though the work is far from finished, there is something almost celebratory about this first step. In the distance, you see a group of workers, engineers and builders, overseeing the construction of a new drainage system. The streets are being dug up, the earth turning as labourers work tirelessly to lay the groundwork for a future where the city's hygiene is no longer a matter of chance. Their faces are covered in dust, their clothes soiled with the grime of the day's work. But there is a certain pride in their eyes. They know they are building something lasting, something that will improve the lives of countless people. The work is grueling, but it is vital. The scene reminds you of how far the city has come. Just a few months ago, this would have seemed impossible, this level of transformation. Yet, here it is, the first visible signs that things are changing, slowly but surely. The road ahead is still long and many challenges remain, but the first steps have been taken. The reformers who were once considered radicals are now being hailed as the architects of a new London, a city where public health and hygiene will no longer be ignored. The idea that sanitation is a fundamental right, not a luxury for the wealthy, has gained ground, and with this shift in perspective, the city's very foundations are beginning to change. You pause at a public fountain, one of the few that has clean water, and watch as people come to fill their buckets. The water flows freely now, not contaminated by the filth of the streets. It's a small luxury, one that many take for granted, but it represents a monumental shift. Clean water, once scarce and dangerous, is now more accessible, and its role in preventing disease is becoming clearer with each passing day. As you continue your walk, you notice more changes, more sewer entrances, more public baths, and even the beginnings of a new waste disposal system. The city is beginning to take shape in a way it never has before, with sanitation and public health now at the forefront of its development. The wealthier districts, once so removed from the struggles of the poor, are starting to take notice. There is a growing recognition that the well-being of the entire city depends on the health of its poorest inhabitants. The poor, once invisible, are now a crucial part of the conversation. The reforms are not just about lifting the city's hygiene standards, they are about lifting everyone, ensuring that every citizen has the opportunity to live in a clean, healthy environment. As the evening settles into night, you find a moment of peace as you stand in the center of the city, watching the slow but steady transformation unfold around you. The work is far from over, but today marks a turning point. The changes that have begun are a testament to the power of collective action, to the belief that things can get better, that the struggles of the past don't have to define the future. There is a long road ahead, but for the first time, the future seems bright. The night presses on, and with it, the weight of solitude deepens. The fire that once flickered brightly now burns low, its embers casting a dim, orange glow across the room. The warmth that had offered comfort hours earlier is now fading, and you sit alone staring into the fire, your mind drifting between the past, the present, and the future. The sounds of the wilderness, though muffled, remain ever present. Coyotes calling in the distance, the rustle of the wind through the sagebrush, the faint thrum of the earth beneath you. The Wild West is quiet, but not still. It is alive in ways both seen and unseen, always shifting, always moving. You rise from the chair, your body sore, each movement slow and deliberate. Your legs ache from the long day, your back stiff from hours of bending and lifting. The work doesn't stop. The chores, the labor, the daily grind, it never ends. Even when the sun sets and the world outside grows dark, the need to prepare for the next day remains. You step outside into the cool, crisp night air, feeling the chill seep into your bones as the quiet expanse of the frontier stretches before you. The land is vast, the night infinite, and the weight of it all presses down on your chest. There's something almost suffocating about the enormity of the Wild West, as if it holds both the promise of freedom and the reality of isolation in its endless horizons. You look up at the sky, seeing a sea of stars stretched out above you, each one a cold, distant light. The immensity of the universe is humbling, a reminder that in the grand scheme of things, you are but a speck in the vastness of existence. But out here, that speck must survive. That speck must endure. You walk slowly across the land, the crunch of your boots on the dry earth the only sound that accompanies you. The cold wind tugs at your jacket, but it is a familiar sensation, something you've learned to accept. As you walk, your thoughts drift again to the life you left behind. You remember the stories of the Wild West that were told to you as a child, the tales of gold rushes, of wide open spaces, of cowboys and pioneers forging a new life. The stories painted the West as a place of adventure, a place where one could make their fortune, a land of endless possibility. But now that you're here, you see the truth of it. The reality is far harsher. The land doesn't offer opportunity freely. It demands everything from those who choose to settle here: strength, patience, and above all, endurance. You've come to realize that survival is not about thriving, not about living in luxury or comfort. Survival in the Wild West is simply about making it through another day. The road ahead is long and uncertain. Tomorrow will bring more work, more challenges. There will be moments of frustration, moments of doubt, but you know that you must keep going. There is no choice. The land demands it. It is a test, day in and day out, a test of both your body and your spirit. There is no escape from it. There is only the road ahead. The wind picks up, howling through the night as the temperature drops further. You pull your jacket tighter around you, your hands numb against the cold. The vastness of the landscape is both beautiful and terrifying. The horizon stretches out before you, an endless expanse that seems to go on forever. It's a land that can break you or make you stronger. You've seen people come to the Wild West with dreams of fortune, only to be swallowed up by the harsh realities of the land. Many didn't make it. Many couldn't handle the isolation, the constant struggle, the never-ending work. But you're still here. The journey ahead is not about achieving success. It's about surviving. It's about taking one step forward when everything inside you tells you to stop. It's about waking up each day to face the same challenges, the same hardships, but continuing to move forward despite it all. The road ahead is long, and it will always be filled with struggles, but you are here for it. You are here to endure. You take another deep breath, feeling the cold air fill your lungs. The night is still, but it is full of the quiet hum of life, of survival. The land may be harsh, but it is alive with possibilities, if only you can make it through. The fire may be low inside the cabin, but the ember of your spirit burns brighter, even in the face of isolation. The night with its dark expanse is only temporary. The road ahead, though difficult, is yours to walk. You turn back toward the cabin, the flickering light from within now a beacon in the dark wilderness. The journey may never end, but for tonight, the warmth of the fire is enough. Tomorrow will come with its own set of challenges, but for now, you allow yourself this small moment of peace. The world outside will wait, but it is the road ahead that calls to you. The darkness of the night seems to envelop the land, stretching out like a heavy curtain that blankets the world in stillness. The wind has died down, leaving only the rustle of dry grasses, a quiet whisper in the vastness of the plains. The air is cooler now, but it carries a crispness that still feels heavy. The stars above, scattered across the sky like diamonds, offer no warmth or comfort. It's just the cold, the land, and the endless night. And then there's you, standing alone in this endless sea of solitude, where even the night feels like an expanse too wide to comprehend. As you settle back inside the cabin, the warmth from the fire is a welcome relief, but the comfort it offers is fleeting. The silence is loud as it always is out here. The land has a way of amplifying the quiet, making it feel like the world is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. But nothing happens. The days stretch on, each one the same as the last, filled with the same tasks, the same struggles. And yet, somehow, that constancy brings a strange sense of peace. You know what to expect each day. You know the work that lies ahead, the challenges that must be met. And though it's exhausting, it's manageable. The work may never end, but it is a rhythm you've learned to move with. There is a certain endurance in the daily grind of survival here, something that becomes part of you. It's not a matter of finding joy in the work. It's a matter of simply enduring it. You've learned to push through the exhaustion, to rise every morning and face the land again, knowing that every task you complete is just one more step in the journey to stay alive. You've become accustomed to the physical toll of the work, the aching back, the sore hands, the tired limbs. But the true test is mental. It's about keeping your mind steady, keeping yourself focused, when the world outside seems so uncertain, so relentlessly harsh. You think back to your first days here, the excitement, the dreams of a new life, of a place untouched by the restrictions of society, a land where you could make your own way. But now, after months of struggle, the idealism has faded. What remains is a quiet, unyielding determination. You've learned that the Wild West doesn't offer dreams, it offers tests. It tests your physical limits, your emotional endurance, your very will to continue. It strips away everything unnecessary, leaving only what is essential: survival, resilience. The fire crackles in the hearth, its soft glow flickering against the walls. You stare into the flames, watching the dance of the embers, lost in the hypnotic rhythm of their movement. Each crackle, each shift in the fire is like the beat of the land, a steady reminder that time is moving forward, that the world keeps turning, no matter how you feel about it. There's no escape from it. The land does not wait for you. The cycle of life and death, of work and rest continues, and you must keep up. There are moments though when the weight of it all presses down on you. It's in the quiet, in the moments when your body aches and your mind wanders. You think about the life you left behind, the places you once knew, the people you once loved. You think about the life you could have had, the life that feels so far away now. But in the Wild West, dreams don't matter. Only the present does, and the present is a hard, unforgiving reality. But even in this harsh world, there are small victories. There's the satisfaction of knowing you've survived another day. There's the reward of a job well done, the knowledge that the work you've done today will allow you to face tomorrow. The land may take, but it also gives. It's the quiet satisfaction of finding food and water when you didn't know if you could. It's the bond you share with the few who live nearby, the fleeting moments of human connection amidst the solitude. These are small victories, but they are what keep you going, what give you the strength to rise each day and face the land again. You step outside, breathing in the cool night air, allowing it to fill your lungs. The landscape before you is vast, stretching out in all directions. The horizon feels infinite, and yet it's a place where everything is in motion, constantly shifting. Even the earth beneath your feet, though solid and unyielding, is part of a larger cycle, a cycle of life, of death, and of rebirth. You've seen the land change year after year, the droughts, the floods, the storms that pass through, shaping the earth in ways both subtle and drastic. It's a reminder that no matter how long you live here, no matter how many seasons pass, the land will continue to evolve. It's this cycle that keeps you grounded, keeps you moving forward. Life in the Wild West is never guaranteed. There are always threats, always challenges, but that the cycle of survival, of enduring the harshness, is something you've learned to accept. You've become a part of the land, and it has become a part. As you stand there, looking at the skyline of the city, you feel the weight of the task at hand. The work is far from finished, and the road ahead is fraught with resistance and setbacks, but there is a quiet sense of hope in the air. The changes taking place are real, and they are happening because people are willing to fight for them. The fight for a cleaner, healthier London may have begun slowly, but it has gained momentum, and in this quiet moment, as the last rays of the sun fade behind the buildings, you realize that despite the challenges ahead, there is no turning back now. The city is on the path to something better. The days begin to grow shorter as the season shifts, the crispness of autumn settling over London like a blanket. The once bustling streets now seem quieter, a bit more reserved, but the tension beneath the surface is undeniable. It's as though the city is waiting, holding its breath, to see what happens next. The reforms that have begun to take hold are still fragile, still in their infancy, and though progress is being made, it is not without resistance. The winds of change are blowing, but they are not yet strong enough to push the city fully into the future. The wealthy continue to resist their comfortable, insulated world, making it hard for them to see the urgency of the situation. They are content to cling to the old ways, to believe that the city's problems are not their problems, that the poor simply need to take better care of themselves. You walk through the streets, the sound of your footsteps the only thing you can hear above the murmurs of the crowd. The changes are more visible now, but they are still far from complete. The public health offices are busy, filled with doctors, engineers, and social workers, all working toward the same goal. There are new initiatives to build public health infrastructure, new sanitation systems that will one day carry waste away from the city's heart. The air is a little cleaner, the streets a little brighter, but the road ahead still feels uncertain. Change, though inevitable, is not always embraced. The resistance still lingers, particularly from the upper echelons of society, who, though beginning to see the need for reform, are still hesitant to fully invest in the transformation. As you make your way down a narrow alley, you pass a wealthy man, his clothes fine, his manner confident, yet there's an unease in his step as he passes the newly constructed public baths. He turns his nose up, dismissing the idea of such public spaces as beneath him. You've seen this look before, the fear of change, the unwillingness to let go of the comfort and security that privilege affords. The wealthy still hold the belief that the poor are responsible for their own condition, that hygiene is a personal matter, not a societal one. They view the sanitary reforms as an unnecessary inconvenience, a cost that could be better spent elsewhere. And yet, despite their resistance, they too are beginning to feel the pressure of change. There's talk in the streets of a new movement, a movement for equality, for better health not just for the rich, but for all. The poor have begun to demand better living conditions, better sanitation, and better access to healthcare. They are no longer willing to accept the idea that their suffering is inevitable, that disease is just a fact of life. They are organizing, speaking out, making their voices heard in ways they never have before. The battle is no longer just about infrastructure. It's about changing the very fabric of society. It's about shifting the belief that health is a privilege, not a right. You stop for a moment standing in front of a newly opened public clinic. The clinic, though humble, is a sign of the progress that is slowly being made. It's a place where people can go for medical care without fear of being turned away because they cannot afford treatment. The doors are open, welcoming those who have long been ignored by the medical establishment. It's a small victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. The idea that everyone, regardless of their social standing, deserves access to healthcare is starting to take root. But not everyone is ready to accept this new reality. You overhear a conversation between two men, both of them well dressed, one of them talking about the nuisance of these new public health initiatives. The other man agrees, his voice laced with disdain. He speaks of how these reforms are costing the city too much money, and that the poor, who have long lived in squalor, should be expected to continue to do so. The debate is heated, but it's clear that the tides of change are pushing against them. Their resistance is only temporary, but their arguments still carry weight in the halls of power. As you walk through the streets, you find yourself thinking about the divide between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. The wealthy continue to live in their safe, clean neighborhoods, their streets scrubbed and well kept, while the poor are left to battle disease in the filth that surrounds them. But that divide is beginning to narrow. The reforms, though slow, are beginning to make a difference, and as more people join the movement for change, the pressure on the wealthy to act grows. The city is beginning to understand that public health is not just about the wealthy's ability to protect themselves, it's about the health of everyone. A city that ignores the poor, that turns a blind eye to their suffering, will never be truly healthy. The change is coming, though slowly, and as it does, the divide between the classes begins to blur. People are beginning to see that their fates are linked, that the health of one is the health of all. You stop in front of a building that has recently been converted into a community health center. It's modest, but it represents a monumental shift. It's a place where people can come together, where they can seek help and support, where they can begin to rebuild their lives. The changes, though small, are starting to build momentum. The city is waking up to the reality of its own health crisis, and with each new step, the future begins to look a little brighter. The city seems to hold its breath, as if waiting for something, waiting for the moment when the momentum of change becomes unstoppable. The progress is slow, but there's a palpable sense of something shifting in the air. The voices of reformers grow louder, their calls for better sanitation, cleaner streets, and better public health infrastructure resonating more clearly in the public sphere. They are no longer just the voices of the few, but of the many. The poor, who once suffered in silence, are now speaking up, demanding their rights and calling for action. And bit by bit, the wealthy are beginning to feel the pressure. The debates on the importance of sanitation, which once seemed abstract, are now taking place in public forums, in taverns, in the newspapers. The tide of change is rising, and it's no longer a matter of if, but when. The resistance is still there, of course. The wealthy, though they have been reluctantly dragged into the conversation, still feel threatened by the reforms. They cling to the belief that the poor are responsible for their own suffering, that disease is a personal failing. But even they can't deny the obvious truth. The city's sanitation system is failing, and it's failing everyone. The outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, and dysentery are too frequent, too deadly to ignore. The Great Stink of 1858 was the breaking point, the catalyst that finally forced the city's leaders to recognize the urgency of the situation. But now, as the realization of the true costs of inaction begins to sink in, even the wealthiest citizens are starting to see that the time for change is long overdue. You walk through the streets, watching the people go about their day, the rhythm of life still unbroken, though there's a quiet tension in the air. The streets are cleaner than they've ever been, the smell of refuse and human waste less pervasive, but it's still there, lingering, persistent, a reminder that the work is far from finished. The new sewage systems are being built, the foundations laid for a new public health infrastructure that will change the city forever. The work is difficult and the progress is slow, but the difference is noticeable. The streets are less crowded with filth, the air less oppressive, and, most importantly, the sense of disease in the air is beginning to fade, if only slightly. You stop in front of a new public health clinic that has recently opened in the heart of a slum, its freshly painted walls standing in stark contrast to the crumbling buildings surrounding it. It's a symbol of hope, though modest, a place where the poor can seek medical care without fear of being turned away because they cannot afford treatment. Inside, the clinic is bustling with activity, doctors and nurses working diligently, treating the sick, diagnosing the diseases that once went undiagnosed. The walls are lined with posters about hygiene, disease prevention, and proper sanitation practices. The people who come here, though poor, are receiving the care they deserve, care that was once reserved for the wealthy alone. It's not perfect, of course. There are still those who cannot access the care they need, and the clinic itself is overcrowded, underfunded, and understaffed. But it is a beginning. It is a sign that the city is finally waking up to the reality that health is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. The clinic, with its clean rooms and new medical supplies, represents a small victory in a city that has long ignored the needs of its most vulnerable. As you continue your walk, the sense of change becomes undeniable. The once unimaginable idea of a citywide sanitation system is now in motion. The wealthy are beginning to understand that their own survival is linked to the health of the poor. The push for better public health is no longer just about the disenfranchised. It's about the city as a whole. The realization is finally sinking in. A city cannot thrive if its people are sick, if its streets are filthy, if its water is poisoned. The city's future depends on the health of all its citizens, not just the few at the top. You stop by a large public square, where a group of children are playing. Their laughter rings through the air, a joyful sound in the midst of the city's transformation. The children are unaware of the history that is unfolding around them, unaware of the years of struggle and resistance that have led to this moment. But they are the future of the city, the ones who will inherit the changes that have begun. They play in the newly cleaned square, their faces bright and full of life. Their future is now a little brighter, a little healthier than it would have been before. It's a small thing, a fleeting moment, but it's a sign that the city is beginning to heal. As you watch them, you feel a quiet sense of pride. You have witnessed the beginning of a new era, one that will take time to fully unfold, but one that will ultimately shape the future of London for generations to come. The work is not finished, but the foundation has been laid. And for the first time in years, the city feels like it has a chance to rise from the filth, to build a future where health and hygiene are no longer privileges for the few, but rights for all. The morning light falls softly across the city, casting a warm glow over the new, cleaner streets. There's a quiet calm in the air, a stillness that feels different from the usual hustle and bustle. The city, though still worn from the struggles of the past, seems to be breathing in a new rhythm, a rhythm of progress. The foundations of change have been set, but now the real work begins. The sanitation systems are growing, the sewers are expanding, and the public health reforms are starting to show real promise. The once oppressive, ever-present threat of disease is no longer as tangible. There's an unfamiliar sense of cleanliness in the air, a freshness that feels almost like a second chance for the city. As you walk through the newly paved streets, you feel a sense of gratitude. The city is no longer the same. It is cleaner, healthier, more aware of its own needs. The streets are no longer choked with filth. The smells of decay no longer permeate every corner. The workers who built the sewers, the doctors who advocated for reform, and the citizens who rallied for change have all made a difference. Though the city is far from perfect, it is beginning to transform in a way that seemed impossible not long ago. You pass by one of the newly established public health centres, its doors wide open, welcoming anyone in need. The air around the centre smells fresh, the space is well lit, and for the first time in the history of the city, the medical care is available to all. There are no longer barriers between the poor and the rich when it comes to healthcare. The centre offers free treatment to the poor, while still providing services to the wealthier citizens who have come to realise the value of a healthier population. The clinic is bustling with activity. The sound of medical instruments and the soft murmur of voices a stark contrast to the once silent, disease-ridden rooms of the past. A small group of workers is inside, preparing new materials for the expansion of the sanitation network. They are tired but proud of the work they've done. They talk about the coming days when the entire city will be connected to the new sewer system, when waste will be carried away, not left to fester in the streets. The task has been monumental, but it has been worth it. Every step, every brick laid, every pipe placed represents a new future for London, a future where disease can no longer spread unchecked through the population. The workers exchange smiles, each one aware that they are part of something bigger than themselves. The wealthier districts are not immune to the changes either. The formerly pristine neighbourhoods, though better maintained than the slums, are no longer able to ignore the shared responsibility for public health. The rich are beginning to contribute to the public health initiatives, understanding that the health of their own children depends on the health of the city as a whole. There are signs of the wealthy reaching out to support the reforms, funding additional sewer construction, supporting public health clinics, and even donating to initiatives that aim to improve living conditions in the poorest areas. You stop for a moment, observing a group of children playing in a clean park, their laughter filling the air. For the first time, these children, the future of the city, are playing in a park that is not filled with trash or sewage. The swings and slides are well maintained, the grass green and soft beneath their feet. They have access to clean water, the air is less polluted, and their futures seem a little brighter. You think back to the children who once played in the filthy streets, unaware of the dangers they faced. Now their lives will be different. They will grow up in a city that values their health, a city where their chances of survival are not dictated by the squalor they were born into. Despite the progress, the work is far from over. The city's transformation is only just beginning. There is still much to be done to fully realize the dream of a city free from disease and filth, but the sense of possibility is growing. The momentum is undeniable. Public health reforms are no longer a radical idea. They are the foundation of the future. The fight for a cleaner, healthier London is no longer a battle of the few against the many, but a movement that includes every citizen, from the wealthiest to the poorest. Susano 5 As you stand there watching the children run and laugh, you feel a quiet sense of peace wash over you. The city has come a long way, and though the work is not finished, there is a deep satisfaction in knowing that the tide has turned. The city will continue to grow, to adapt and to learn, but it will do so with the understanding that a city's health depends on the health of every individual within it. It is a city that is beginning to care for its own, a city that is building a future where cleanliness and health are no longer privileges, but rights for all. The sound of hammers and saws fills the air as construction continues. The city, once stifled under the weight of disease and filth, is now a place where progress is not just a promise, but a visible reality. You walk through streets that are bustling with life. The people you pass, though still struggling, now carry a sense of pride in their steps. The changes that have slowly taken root in the city's foundation are no longer something that only the reformers speak of. They are something that everyone can feel. The smell of fresh air, though still tinged with the lingering presence of coal, is different now. It is the scent of transformation, of a London slowly but surely pulling itself out of the darkness and into the light. As you make your way down a newly cleaned avenue, you notice the vibrant flowers blooming in a freshly planted garden along the street. The once neglected green spaces are now being revitalized, providing areas where families can gather, where children can play without fear of stepping on discarded waste or breathing in polluted air. You see mothers sitting on benches, their faces relaxed, their children playing in the grass. This is a luxury that many of them never thought they would experience. These small moments, though ordinary to some, are nothing short of a revolution for those who once lived surrounded by filth and disease. The city's transformation is not just visible in the infrastructure, but in the lives of the people. You see more people washing their hands in public fountains, a practice that was once foreign to them. The public health reforms have spread far beyond the walls of hospitals and clinics. Hygiene is now a common topic of conversation, not just for the wealthy, but for the poor as well. The idea that cleanliness is essential for health has taken root, and the people of London are slowly but surely embracing it. What was once considered a luxury is now a right for everyone. There's still much to be done, of course. The sewer system is still expanding, reaching deeper into the city, bringing with it a promise of cleaner, safer living conditions. The work is grueling, the cost is high, but the city is finally on the path to a future where disease will no longer be an inevitable part of life. Public health workers, doctors, and reformers continue to advocate for better conditions, but now the fight is no longer one of survival. It's a fight to protect the progress that has been made, to ensure that the gains are not lost to complacency. You stop at a newly constructed hospital, its walls gleaming with the light of a new era. Inside, there are people being treated for diseases that once claimed lives without question. The medical staff here no longer uses harmful treatments like bloodletting or mercury. Instead, they focus on hygiene, proper nutrition, and the understanding that health is a holistic concept. The shift in medical practices, once met with skepticism, is now the new norm. This hospital, once a dream, now stands as a testament to what can be achieved when people work together for the greater good. The smell of fresh bread wafts from a nearby bakery, and you realize that the city is even beginning to look different. The streets are lined with cleaner shops, with freshly painted walls and windows that no longer seem darkened by soot. The local markets, though still bustling, are a little tidier, and the once filthy alleyways are now regularly cleaned, with trash properly disposed of. The once crowded slums that had been filled with disease now have spaces for clean water, regular waste collection, and communal areas where people can rest and talk about the changes they're witnessing in their own lives. But it's not just the physical changes that are significant, it's the shift in how people think about their city. The rich and the poor alike have begun to understand that a healthy city is a city that cares for all its people. The poor, once invisible and ignored, are now seen, their needs are no longer dismissed, and the reforms that have taken root have ensured that their voices are heard. They have access to healthcare, to clean streets, to clean water, and to the services that were once reserved for the elite. As the sun sets over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, you pause and take it all in. The road has been long, and the fight for a cleaner, healthier London has not been without its struggles. But as you stand there watching the lights of the city twinkle in the distance, you know that something has fundamentally changed. The people of London, despite the hardship, have come together and forged a new future. The work is far from over, but the foundation has been laid, and the city is now ready to face whatever comes next. The night falls gently over the city of London. The first true night in years where the city's future feels bright, not overshadowed by the grime of its past. The stars are clearer than they've been in a long time, and the usual fog of soot that blankets the skyline has been pushed back by the winds of change. The progress, though gradual, has been undeniable. The work of the past few years is evident in every corner of the city. The streets are cleaner, the air is fresher, and most importantly, the people have begun to live healthier lives. Disease, once a constant companion, now feels like a distant memory. The Great Stink of 1858, the defining moment that spurred the reforms, has become not just a symbol of the city's filth, but a symbol of the resilience and strength of its citizens, who came together to forge a better future. As you stand there gazing at the calm, peaceful city, the quiet murmur of the streets and the occasional distant clatter of horses' hooves on the cobblestones is the only sound you hear. The reforms are not yet perfect, and the road ahead remains long, but for the first time, there is a sense of peace. You think back to the city you once knew, the dirty, overcrowded slums, the stench of waste, the looming threat of disease that never seemed to leave. It was a city trapped in a cycle of neglect and fear, but now it's different. It is a city that is rebuilding, a city that has found its way out of the darkness and into the light. The transformations that have taken place are not just physical, they are spiritual, emotional, and cultural. The people of London, once divided by class, are now united by the shared understanding that health is a collective responsibility. No longer are the poor invisible to the rich, no longer is their suffering ignored. The wealthy, once detached from the struggles of the working class, have begun to understand that their own health depends on the health of the entire city. The wealthy have become advocates for public health, funding initiatives, and working alongside the poor to ensure that sanitation, hygiene, and healthcare are available to all. You walk through the city one last time, feeling the weight of everything that has happened. The work has been long and arduous, and the city's transformation has come at great cost. But it has been worth it. The sense of pride that fills you as you witness the new London is something you never thought you'd experience. This city, once plagued by disease and poverty, is now a symbol of what can be achieved when people come together, when they work for the common good. It is a city that is no longer defined by its filth and decay, but by its resilience, its determination, and its hope for a better future. As you stand on a bridge overlooking the Thames, the moonlight shimmering on the river's surface, you take a deep breath. The air smells different now, cleaner, fresher. It's a small thing, but it's a sign of just how far London has come. The city is healing slowly but surely. The battle is far from over, but the foundation for a healthier, more prosperous future has been laid. The work of the reformers, the medical professionals, the workers, and the everyday citizens has not been in vain. Together, they have created a city that is finally beginning to thrive. The future is no longer uncertain. The changes are not temporary, they are permanent. The city has found its way, and though the journey ahead will require continued effort, the path forward is clear. London, once a city defined by filth and disease, is now a city reborn. A city that values the health and well-being of all its people, regardless of their status or wealth. And for the first time, you feel that sense of peace, that quiet certainty that the future is not just a hope, but a reality.